Witam Was
Welcome.
serdecznym shalom.
I'd like to bring you warm shalom from Israel. Warm welcome to all of you gathered here who wanted to be here with us. Welcome.
W Zaunie.
I'm here in Zauna. This is the place where people
Więźniarza.
were turned into inmates, prisoners.
Młoda dziewczyna.
How did it happen to me? I was a young girl there, long hair.
Ścieli mi włosy.
So they cut my hair first. They put this tattoo on my arm,
Na moim lewym przedramieniu.
my left arm.
A nie było, ja widzę tyle pasiaków tutaj.
And I can see so many stripped uniforms back then. We didn't have enough of those clothes. So I got a Red Army uniform to wear,
Spodnie,
namely the trousers and a top
lewe,
and two left shoes, wooden shoes actually.
dałam, a na głowie
So you can imagine what I looked like. They shaved my head and I was wearing a rug on my head. That was me.
Jak się widziałam, jak się mogłam poznać.
Was I able to recognize myself in the mirror? There were no mirrors. I was looking at myself at the glass and I could only see
Osobowo.
the silhouette of whom I've become.
Jak można tutaj żyć?
How can you live here?
A gdzie rodzina?
Where's your family?
Mama, ojciec.
Where's my mum? Where's my father? Where's my sisters and brothers? I was there on my own, completely on my own.
Walczyć z
How was I to fight the new reality?
Nie wiem, czy Państwo wszyscy wiedzą.
I don't know whether you all aware, but the Germans shot down the Jewish schools and the Jews were not allowed to study. I left to study. I wanted so much to go to school.
A tutaj byłam
And here,
z ludźmi z całej Europy.
all of a sudden, I found myself with all the people across Europe. I heard so many languages. So I felt maybe I learned something. I did learn
Przede wszystkim
a
przeklinać.
lot. The first thing I learned was to curse, and a bad language is all the languages, because that's what I heard.
Później
Bad
wybrałam,
languages.
ale o tym nie będę mówiła. Tylko
And then, indeed, I learned other languages as well, but I'm going to speak about something else. So I wanted to study. And there were these female inmates
wiersz,
who wrote poetry, who wrote poems. And these poems were my food for thought, were my mental feed. And there was this former inmate, Krystyna Żygórska. She wrote this poem.
Ja oczywiście to jest ogromny wiersz.
It's a big poem. I will only quote
Malówką
a few lines.
czytać. I przyjdzie dzień,
And so the day will come when for your march we will charge at you without command, butcher you heartlessly, beat you no end. Music will also play for you. You'll howl you've had enough, but from spite will not stop, For so many victims, so much blood, you will all pay, only you. For so much sorrow, sighing tears, may you all die like dogs, and so that the world may breathe a sign of relief. We will rub out every trace of you. Only then will we sing aloud to the beat of freedom, left, left.
zemsty była potem.
This need of retaliation was huge, but how can we get back on these people? So we were looking for retaliation. Now, if you shot in death, that's easy. Poison? Not difficult at all. So what would be the right death? Us, the former inmates? What kind of death did we want for our perpetrators? Well, we wanted them to pass through the same Via Dolorosa as we did. That was the only type of punishment that we wanted them, as we thought this would serve them right for all the evil they have caused us.
Wiecie, że była tutaj latryna.
You know, there was this latrine here. Everybody who visits Auschwitz can see the standalone toilet. Now, this latrine was our parliament, if you like, because it's where you could discuss things openly. Because The couples would not enter there because they felt disgusted. And so this latrine, this outside toilet, was our parliament, and we were talking there, what would it look like? Will the world believe us? And we thought, no, the world would never believe us. It's impossible for human beings to do so horrid things to other people. So we thought that one day they will simply say, well, it was all mental disillusions or mental illusions or some fantasy coming from those Jews. So they would not treat it as real accounts. I had that number on my arm, so I will be over with Auschwitz. So we never called it Auschwitz. We called it Oświęcim, by the name of the town. It was only later that Auschwitz became Oświęcim. Only then did I find out that this is a place called Oświęcim, because, well, I never knew where they were bringing me. But I've survived. I'm still here, and I've lived to see all of you. And I'm here 72 years after the liberation. It simply feels great. I'm filled with happiness because life is the greatest gift we can have. So after the liberation, I went to Belgium, then to Palestine. And at the beginning of my professional career, I worked at the nursery school. And in Israel, summer is long, so you can wear short sleeves. And this number of my arm was always out there. So kids would ask me, why have you got anything on your head? Who wrote it to you? You should use paper to write on, not your body. And then I had to reply, and I had to tell them all about the concentration camp. I had to explain it, and I had to use simple language to explain it to the kids. But okay, enough about that. And so you have to somehow account it to the children. That's why I wrote this book. And my first book was called What Happened During the Holocaust? A rhyming story for kids if they want to find out. So the very title suggests that you want to know or not. So it was up for a child to decide. I didn't want to impose anything on those kids. I didn't want to make them read it. And then the second book came. It was called Chica, a Dog in a Ghetto. Chica, a Dog in a Ghetto, is a short story. Mind you, in 1995, I came to visit a primary school here in Oświęcim, and I spoke to young kids, grade 1 to 3. The book was not yet out, so I was telling them the story about the dog. And the kids understood everything. We are afraid that the children would not understand, but of course the children are able to take it in at the very level of their then emotional development. So my books have been translated to 5 languages. I wish they were translated to more languages though. And this year, in April, last year, in April, a film was out entitled Chica, a Dog in a Ghetto. So the Germans made the premiere of the film in Hamburg, and I must say that I appreciate the way the Germans handled that. I mean, they showed a lot of understanding about treating my short story. So Chica is a Spanish word which means little. So Chica became famous all across the world and even won awards. 2 awards in Chicago. I was asking young people, because I was traveling there with young people, who's that film for? And they told me, it's for everybody to see. And so I think you can learn a lot from watching a film that was initially made for children. And then the third book that I wrote was What If the Stars Could Speak? This is a short story about the cousin. I'm the one telling the story of a cousin who was a mother of 2 children. And until the liberation in 1945, until the very date of liberation, that is the 27th of January, she was here in Auschwitz and she got liberated. And then I wrote another book in English, actually. It's in English, both in English and in Hebrew. And it's entitled Siren, or Mermaid was crying today, because in Israel the sirens are out loud to commemorate big events. Now, I'd like to say a few words about upbringing of children, because this dream of mine that I wanted to study did finally come true. I'm a psychologist by training, and I'm a lecturer at the Teachers College. And I just wanted to say a few words about this upbringing. But as it is mostly adults that I say, may I say that I have another book out for the adults, which was published by the museum, and it's called Blessed Be Imagination, Cursed Be Imagination. And it's basically about the accounts of the people who've been here. People call it a diary or a log of a survival. And now, in this book, I speak about each nation, I speak about each, and I use the language of all the nations represented here, and I try to tell the everyday story. I talk about everyday issues, physiological needs, how they were handled here. And because I managed to learn to write poems, I said to myself, I can't be gone before I present these poems to the world. That's why the book. And now let me go back to teaching. I've got this very basic question. Is it possible, is it necessary to teach children about the Holocaust? Shall we teach the Holocaust to children? Is it at all possible to teach that? You may indeed guess what my answer is. So is it possible to teach the Holocaust? There's loads of questions. When shall we start telling children about the Holocaust? Shall we ask until the kid asks us a question? Well, we can ask and it never comes. And so you have to stimulate the children. So my books, or this film, Chico, A Dog in a Ghetto, can be used. Not only my writings, of course, because other people wrote things about that as well. So what is it that we need to do with our children? First of all, we have to find out how much they know. And children have taught me a lot. It turned out that they know more than we would ever expect. What we do, we somehow transfer our feelings and our thoughts on small children, and they have completely different mindset. Say by the end of 10, they have a different mindset here. So we have to find out what they know, what are the sources of their knowledge, what is it that they would like to know. And we need to ask the teachers, or parents for that matter, are you able to provide them answers? And of course people can say, well, I can't give the answers because I don't know. I would have to do some research first. How do you get prepared to discussing the Holocaust? There's loads of books and films and programs and the internet, for sure you can get prepared. What is it that we are afraid of when discussing the Holocaust with children? We feel that maybe we will not be able to strike the right balance with the children's development, that maybe they will get afraid, that we will impact their sleeping patterns. Maybe we'll keep them awake at night. And so certainly we can understand that these fears are there. And so what are the topics that we should discuss with our children? Well, how do we help other people? How do we help people who have been imprisoned here? What happens when we miss our parents, our pets, our toys? So this feeling of loneliness. I would also like to share one experience that I've had. I want to share it with you. It was one of the most wonderful experiences. On my birthday, I was given a poem. It was a poem written by an inmate who came from Sosnowiec. She was working in the Jewish commune. She was a very skillful and talented poem, and she simply offered it to me. My Polish name was Iza, so she wrote a poem to little Iza. And she said, I wanted to give you rivers of champagne, sausages and cakes, but I am poor, and therefore I'm offering you ambrosia in a back roll and this little loaf of bread into this little funny and childlike poem. This is what I offer you to lead your way. I put everything in here, all my best wishes coming from the bottom of my heart. I want to remember you with your round face, with your childlike eyes full of faith. This is what I saw you when you first arrived. And this rain that was falling on you was whispering to me, stop, Zofia, I've just met a human being. And so let the insects go away from those blocks, and maybe the thunder will destroy the buildings. I want to thank you, little Iza, for being exactly who you are. So this is one of the most beautiful birthday gifts I've ever received, although I did receive other very moving and symbolic gifts. And so, did Auschwitz impact my life? Yes, it did. It influenced the way I decided to follow my life. It influenced my profession, because I believe that it's all about upbringing. How do you make sure that you educate your children to be able to tell the good from the evil? And I guess this is my conclusion. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Tak, teraz chwileczkę tylko tak, żebym nie upadła znów.